Okay, how's it going, guys? Today we are in a 2015 Nissan R35 GTR. I said this in the previous video that I made with this, where we were just going out and getting some photos and videos for the upcoming Shift Colorado magazine release. It'll be releasing in March. So definitely keep an eye on their website. I will link to that down below. But this GTR is particularly special to me because it's my brother-in-law's, and he and I definitely share a passion for cars. We will regularly take this GTR and my Audi R8 out to High Plains Raceway, usually between 2 and 4 times a year. Jason got this. Jason's my brother-in-law. He got this around the same time as I got my Audi R8. We were probably separated by only a couple of months. So it was just really cool to both get supercar level cars roughly around the same time. So in today's video, I wanted to answer the question of whether or not somebody can daily drive an R35 GTR. And the answer is yes. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Just kidding. But yeah, I've had it this week, gotten plenty of seat time in it, so I feel like I am somewhat qualified to answer the question of whether or not one of these is daily drivable. I will say that this GTR isn't completely stock. My brother-in-law has made some modifications to this, and I think they are truly great modifications, if I'm being honest. He didn't go balls to the wall crazy and put some 2,000 horsepower kit on it. He kept it simple and clean, which I love. So his modifications include full bolt-ons from the turbo back. It's all titanium from HKS. So the exhaust sounds really, really good in my opinion. I'm very much not used to driving turbo cars. I'm much more used to naturally aspirated. But yeah, you can hear the turbos extremely well. It's a very pleasant experience. He also opted to put pretty much entirely new Nismo suspension underneath this car, which it desperately needed. It's a lot less body roll. So he also put carbon ceramic brakes on it. So the reason why I'm telling you about those modifications is that you know that I'm not judging this car in its completely stock form. There's going to be some differences between the stock and a modified GTR, of course. But yes, let's start with the interior of the car. With this car being from 2015, it's got a lot of creature comforts. The tech is still very functional and very usable. The sound system sounds great. The infotainment is pretty straightforward to navigate. But yeah, that's one of the things that at least I judge a car on if I'm trying to figure out if it's daily drivable, is how much effort it takes to get the car to do what you want it to do. So if I want it to blow ice cold AC, if that is difficult, that's kind of a bad sign of a daily driver in my opinion. But that is not the case with this car. Everything is very straightforward, easy use. But yes, one of the gripes that I have is that the paddle shifters are the exact same as the Nissan 370Z. I had a 370Z for quite a long time and I loved it. But you know, when somebody makes the jump to God level Nissan with the GTR, I can understand why some people might want to have some different parts in it that are maybe a little bit higher quality. It's not necessarily a dog on the paddle shifters. They feel good and they do their job fine. But that's just something to keep in mind, is that there are some parts bin stuff that's going on in the GTR. Not a whole lot though, which is good. The other gripe that I have is that the trunk release button, which is down here, it was a little bit difficult for me to figure out at first. It wasn't super intuitive. I was like, do I pull up? Do I press in? But turns out you actually have to put your finger on top of it and press down. Another thing that I would like to see in the Nissan GTR would be a flat bottom steering wheel. I am a little bit of a sucker for those. Not necessarily because it makes the car like that much more functional. I just really like the look of them, and I like the feel of them. There are a lot of buttons on the steering wheel. I feel like it makes it a little bit busy, but in that sense, you get a lot of control from the steering wheel. You don't have to be fussing around over here as much. So in that case, even though it's not my preference, it does make it a better daily driver. Now, another thing that bugs me a little bit, and I don't know why this is the case, but the speedometer on the left, it's got this kind of like, I don't know, I want to see 0 more horizontal. I don't know exactly how to describe that, but if you look at my Audi R8's gauge cluster, if you look at the Miata's gauge cluster, it's all level. This one has this weird like swooping design, and it kind of throws me for a loop because I have to look further down for the normal speeds, but that's just a personal preference. Everything else with the gauge cluster though, I do like a lot. Oh yeah, and look at that. Visors that actually go the right way. I say that because one of the weird quirks about the Audi R8 that I own, the visors, you pull towards you instead of pull down and push that way, away from you. Oh yeah, another point that I missed about the interior that I liked is that there's kind of like this carbon fiber look to the center console area, as well as down by the shifter. I believe down by the shifter, that's something that Jason replaced. It matches up perfectly, doesn't look out of place whatsoever. Another big gripe that I have with the interior is I don't have an armrest. I usually like to have my arm pinned, my right arm pinned up against an armrest, but this doesn't have it. I can pin my left arm here and drive like this. But yeah, that's just a picky thing for me, is that I really like having my armrest. And there is one here, it's just too far back. But I think that covers all of the bad that I could find for the interior. So really not bad. The things that I love about this interior in particular, it's got this awesome like bone/cream color to it. And that just completely changes the interior design, and it just makes it feel that much more luxurious. Plus, I'm just a sucker for different colored interiors. I just think it's really cool. Adds a whole nother level of experience to the car. And if you don't enjoy your interior, you know, like the design and how it looks, how it functions, it's not the best daily driver then, is it? There is plenty of headroom. Anybody that is tall is going to fit in here without any issues. And they kept the headliner black, which I am always a huge fan of. For a long time, they were making headliners where it was all tan. And it was just like, why the hell are car designers doing this? But some of them got the message, which is good. As for road noise, it's pretty quiet in here. They've sealed it up pretty damn good. I don't know if as the car ages that the road noise will become worse in any way, but it seems real nice and comfortable in here. It's not like you're hearing every single crack in the road. So that is good. Another thing with interior to be mindful of is visibility, and this car has plenty of it. It is a 2+2, so you've got big seats in the front that are nice and comfortable, and then you've got the seats in the back that you put your friends if you're mad at them after they told you that they were going to buy you beers and pizza for helping them move, but then at the end of the day they just say, thanks guys, see you later. That's where you put them. But yes, the visibility is awesome. Windows are nice and huge. There's these tiny windows in the back that are kind of similar to a Mustang, where you can peek through over your shoulder to check your blind spots if you want. The rear pillars are pretty thick, so that is something to keep in mind as you daily drive a car like this. As for storage space, this car has tons. So you've got the rear seats, and then the trunk is freaking enormous. Like, you'll see some footage of the trunk, and you'll see that this one has a custom subwoofer inset, and they thankfully matched the bone white color of the interior up here. But even with that subwoofer install, it's like so much room back there. I couldn't imagine having a trunk this large, just because I'm used to smaller storage space cars. As for the tech in the car, you're not going to have any kind of fancy blind spot monitoring, but you do have a rear view camera that works, which is very pleasant. I just got winked at by a Miata. I'm pretty sure he's my neighbor. While the backup camera is very nice, I don't know, man. Backup cameras always mess with me a little bit. It's tough to get them right. Very thankful for them, though. I love them, but like, for an example, this one, it does the fisheye thing, so it seems like stuff is a lot closer to you than it actually is. So that's kind of a pain, but I'm glad it exists. Even if it didn't, the rear window is plenty large enough. Oh yeah, another, well, actually two other gripes about the interior. I wish that there was a bump shifter down here by the shifter, kind of like how the Audi R8 has it. In this case, you just have the paddle shifters if you want to shift. I like having two options, just because if I'm turning full crank or turning in a weird way, I can always bump the shifter to downshift or upshift as needed. Not the case in this one. I have to kind of fuss about and find the paddles here on the column. The other thing that I noticed that I'm not the biggest fan of is the door handles on the interior. It's just not super intuitive when you get into the car. I do wish that they kind of stuck with a more classic door handle, but it does add to the design of it, so it makes it nice and sleek. Not that big of a deal, and you'll get used to it over time. Now on to the exterior of the car. If you're going to be daily driving a car or an SUV, you should probably like the look of it. You should at least like the color of it. The exterior of the GTR I really like. I think it's very subtle and very sleek looking, and it definitely gives supercar vibes. I really like the headlights and how it has like that lightning look to it. The taillights are absolutely gorgeous. I love those. And my brother-in-law did not stop with the performance and fun modifications, such as the HKS exhaust, along with the Nismo suspension. He also did some aesthetic modifications to it as well, where he got some new 22-inch wheels. They're kind of TE37 looking. I think they look really good on the car. It's just a very functional fitment. The fenders in the front have been changed, and they've got some carbon fiber on them. They look like shark gills, which adds a crazy cool look to it. He also got a carbon fiber front lip, as well as some carbon fiber side skirts. So it's very subtle, especially with the black color of the car. It blends in really nicely. It's not sticking out like a sore thumb, which is definitely a positive thing. But yes, because of his choice to put on the 22-inch wheels, I think it actually raised the car a little bit, so you get that nice fitment look without having to worry about scraping on everything around town, which makes it very daily drivable. But yeah, I love the roof line of this car, how it slopes back and everything. Just the overall profile of the car is very classic. I think it's going to age extremely well. Oh yeah, he's also got a full carbon fiber trunk. It's this pretty aggressive looking ducktail, or duckbill. I forget exactly what those are called, but it really adds a nice look to the back of it. And also with the modified exhaust and the full bolt-ons, the exhaust tips are a little bit different. Looks real aggressive. As for the driving experience and just kind of how the car behaves, It is extremely user-friendly and very confidence-inspiring. You know, anybody could hop into this, toss it in automatic, and just drive it around like a normal car. So that's a big, big win for daily driving. Now, speaking of automatic mode, I have noticed that this car loves to shift extremely fast all the way up to 6th gear when you're going 30 miles per hour. It kind of wants to be driven like an SUV in that case, but I'm sure the computer is doing that in order to give it its best miles per gallon. I would assume that would be the case anyways. But it is kind of annoying if you're in automatic mode and it just always wants to sit in 6th. So for those that don't know, this does have a dual clutch setup that will typically make shifts a lot smoother compared to a single clutch. And it does. However, similar to my Audi R8, this car does not like going slow. It does not like crawling around in parking lots. Also, when you first start it up, it does not like reverse, just like the Audi R8. It gets a little jittery, a little clunky, makes a whole bunch of weird noises. It's not nearly as rough as the single clutch Audi R8, but it still is a bit quirky given its dual clutch setup, which I actually enjoy. Shows that the car has soul, has personality. Just driving around town like normal in manual mode, I think it's a very pleasant driving experience. I did have one instance when I was driving it this week where I think I was going from 2nd into 3rd, and whatever I did, the car did not like it and it balked pretty heavily. But other than that, it's been real smooth. Shifts are nice and crisp and very quick. For powering this car, we have a 6-cylinder. It's a twin turbo. If I remember correctly, it's somewhere in the 500 to 600 range, probably closer to 600 because of the bolt-ons that my brother-in-law did. So that's plenty of power to use on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, no matter if I am crawling through traffic or if I'm driving the city streets or if I'm on the highway, this car seems to behave really well. Again, like I said, it's the slower speeds, it gets a little clunky and weird, but it's not really that bad at all. It will make a lot of interesting noises, which is fun. A bunch of interesting clunks and clicks, stuff that sounds like the car is, I don't know, braking, but it's not. It is just voicing its opinion. I still can feel a decent amount of body roll in this car. It's interesting, it just feels very heavy, I think would be the correct word for it. The steering feels pretty heavy, but it's still very direct. So you can feel what the car is doing. I remember a couple years back, I was driving this car and I was trying to pass somebody, and it was, you know, just a 2-lane road. I saw the double yellow opened up and I was gonna try and pass. Little did I know there was a curve coming up, so I had to floor it because I saw another car coming directly towards me in the oncoming lane. So I had to go around this curve much faster than I ever would. And this car's tech kicked in and really kept me safe when that happened. The traction control kicked in and it did a wonderful job of keeping the car stable. So I guess that's how I would describe it, is that the way the car's suspension feels, it's stable and very confident, but you can feel it's heavy. As for throttle response, the turbos are right there. They're always ready to kick in and give you that little boost. Even though they are stock twin turbskis, there's not any kind of weird lagging issue of any kind. It is kind of funny. I am used to much more shorter and compact cars. So when I was doing a U-turn with this thing, it was like, good Lord, maybe the Audi R8 isn't actually that bad. As for miles per gallon, stock, I believe this is somewhere in the 20s. I want to say it might be like 21.
21?
Maybe 24. I'll put it up on the screen of what it actually is. car is heavy. It weighs around 3,800 pounds. One thing I found interesting about the way that the transmission behaves at lower speeds is that it doesn't really ever want to shift into first. It kind of just likes hanging out in second. Another thing to consider when you are getting into cars of this caliber, you know, it's supercar territory. Cost to repair is always a thing to consider. Parts availability is another thing to consider. Luckily, Nissan, in classic fashion, has been making the R35 GTR since 2009. I don't really know what the maintenance costs are on a car like this, just because it's not actually my car. I don't actually own it. But as far as I know, Jason, my brother-in-law, hasn't really had any issues with this car breaking down. It is low miles. It's at 21,000 miles. So he's definitely driven it enough to where if something was going to fail catastrophically, it probably would have by now. I know the common thing with GTRs is bell housing rattle. That's one that people always freak out about. But from what I've heard, that was solved for cars that are 2015 or newer. And then I think if you're driving it very spiritedly, say on a track or something, and it's stock, there tends to be like heat issues, especially in the transmissions. I might be wrong about that, but you can get a transmission cooler and call it a day. But for daily driving, I'm probably really not going to have any issues with it, especially if you stick to a 2015 or above. Another big benefit of the GTR is that it is all-wheel drive, and it is a damn good all-wheel drive system. So if you live in colder environments like I do, such as Colorado, this car, like, you'd be hard-pressed to find another supercar in this price range that delivers it all in such a good package. Another big thing with driving experience is brake feel. I'm particularly picky on that, especially if it's too sensitive. Like a lot of newer cars, the brake feel will be like on a hairpin trigger, and I'm like, dude, I don't need my brakes to be on cocaine. Like, I just want a nice brake feel. This GTR, especially with the carbon ceramic brakes, feels so goddamn perfect. I think that might be my favorite thing about driving this GTR is the brake feel. It's just so solid, real easy to figure out where it's biting and how much pressure to put into it. It just responds so well. Seating position is really good. I actually said this in the LC500 video where I compared the seating position of the LC500 to the Nissan GTR. They're very similar. You aren't completely flat on the ground. You're raised up a decent bit. It's a really good driver's position, in my opinion. Plus, with how the seats are bolstered and how comfy they are, it's just a very pleasant experience overall. And of course, with the driving experience, the exhaust is great. Especially with it being a 6-cylinder, it's got a very good tone to it. You get this interesting, like, whir. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like an interesting growl. It sounds very techy and like futuristic-y, kind of like an EV, just a little bit. And I actually really like it. But anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for this video. Can you daily drive a GTR? Heck yeah, you can. Thank you guys so much for watching and commenting. If you comment below, I will absolutely respond to you. If you have driven an R35 GTR before, I would love to hear your thoughts and whether or not you think it is a daily driver machine or not. And as always, thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. We are well on our way to the 500 subscriber goal. We've just been seeing more and more subscriber growth lately. It's kicking up very nicely. So if you find yourself continuing to come back to my channel or getting recommended my videos, I would really appreciate a subscribe. It's always fun making these videos, and the more subscribers that this channel gets, the more opportunities that we can enjoy and that I can share with you. So, with all that being said, I upload every single Sunday, and we will see you in the next one.